We begin life as a blank canvas, every breath a new stroke of potential. From our very first steps, we start a journey of growth, learning, and searching. Through each stage, we take on roles. We learn, we fight, we build. We strive to find our place in the world. Yet for so many of us, there's a whisper, quiet but persistent. A question lingering at the edges of our thoughts. Is this all there is? Deep down, we sense something more, something bigger, a purpose uniquely ours. And when we begin to uncover it, everything changes. That purpose brings clarity. It transforms the mundane into the magical, the ordinary into the extraordinary. It adds depth to every experience and a radiant glow to everyday existence. Here on Transcendence, we explore that search for meaning. Together, we'll uncover the truths, tools, and paths that guide us toward the lives we were meant to live. Because when you find your purpose, you find yourself. Welcome to Transcendence. Welcome back, everybody. Aliens, extraterrestrials, ultra-terrestrial, whatever you happen to be, humans, we welcome you into this space as we talk about some transcendence with your hosts, Josh Rutledge and Debz Shakti.
Hello, Josh.
Hello again. So this is our third episode. Wow, power of threes. I think this is going to be a great one.
The chills.
And today we're going to talk about simulation theory. So I think the idea of simulation theory, the way I've heard it, is that this is all some sort of a computer simulation, and we're just, characters that exist within that simulation. I've also heard it that not only are we either we're characters or we're what they call non-playable characters. That is to say, we're just, most of us aren't really here. We're just here for the benefit of some. But I think in both of those cases, I think it's an interesting idea to toy around with, that really when you really break down what existence is and why we're here, and that is to have these experiences, in that way, it really is kind of like a simulation, not necessarily a computer simulation, the way we and our brains process it, but it's a simulation for us to continually have life experiences.
Right. And I completely agree. I mean, I don't think it is a computer simulation, although that's a possibility. I believe, because I'm a lifelong yogi for one thing, and the yogic teachings are that we are the dreamer, and we are the dream. Mm-hmm. And so the dreamer is constantly, in one layer of reality, dreaming or daydreaming if you want, creating some other reality that you put yourself into. But to have a valid connection with that reality, you forget that you're the dreamer and you think that's your reality until things start kind of collapsing and falling in, right? Which is what's happening right now in our world.
Well, and it's interesting to think about it from a dream perspective, because if you ever had a lucid dream where you realize that you're dreaming, right, and then all of a sudden, I've talked to people who have had it a couple different ways. Either they realize they're dreaming and they wake up, but some, and I've had a couple of these, realize they're dreaming and bend the dream to whatever they want it to be.
That's the secret sauce.
Right. And so that's really when you, like what you talked about there, reality or the waking state is just the same thing. We're just somewhere else. There's a different version of us, of our life force, that is dreaming this reality.
This one.
And it's waiting for us to realize that we're in a lucid dream and bend this reality to best meet our needs.
And again, using your conscious self-awareness. I mean, look around you, and including myself, you know, we're on robot mode most of the time. We just kind of get in autopilot, right, through our lives.
Yeah.
And then we wonder why it doesn't feel so good. But when you're in a creative state, you're like having an inspiration, and you're in a flow state and you're creating something and all that, life feels completely different. But they're all connected. So I think that's why I chose my background. You know, it's the flower of life symbol, but look at it. Everything is connected to everything else.
Right.
And they're all referring to each other. They're all bleeding information in and out, if you will, if you think of that as a living organism. And I believe that's what we are. But I love the simulation theory. It goes into oneness.
Right. And it also, I think, helps us begin to process, you know, it seems like everybody is always asking that big question of what is the purpose of life? And one of the, you know, the thing that I've kind of come to understand the purpose of life is to have those experiences and pass on what you learn, the feelings that you have, the colors that you see, etc., onto your higher self, so that your higher self can continue its evolutionary steps. Almost kind of like the egg theory that Neiman, I think, came up with a few years back. You know, in that situation, everybody is the same higher consciousness, and you're all having experiences so that higher consciousness can evolve. Exactly. And you know, and that's the reason that is the purpose of life, is to experience life. And so when you realize that that's the case, it would make sense. How do you ensure the appropriate number of experiences to grow as a higher conscious? You simulate those experiences.
Exactly. I mean, look at our culture right now. If a big corporation or a research facility or a military facility wants to figure out the best way to do something, or for the highest probability of success, they run simulations, right? Well, why wouldn't our higher self, source, whatever, this is constantly growing and evolving too, why wouldn't it do that? And how entertaining to be able to do that and see all those different versions doing what they're doing. I mean, I just really feel that that's what's happening. And we look at those Matrix movies, you know?
Yeah.
That's what the architect was. He was just kind of like watching all those different versions, you know, on those screens. And
of course, the difference is that what we're talking about is in the Matrix movie, it would be Neo was Neo, but also the architect.
He was, yeah. Right. And then I think that's the disturbing thing to some people who have not quite been exposed to that particular idea. Most people in our Western culture have been programmed to believe that there's them, and then there's this hierarchy of authorities and so forth, and then there's God, if you believe in a creator or a source or whatever. But they're not, you know, you're lower, you're like here, and it's not true. No. You know, the yogis have a saying, Tvamasi, that with capital THAT, thou art. You are that. So, but it's so uncomfortable for people to even think about that sometimes.
Well, I think what a lot of people struggle with, and I sometimes have struggled with it, is taking all of that kind of higher level of thinking, and then thinking about, well, how does that change the fact that I still have to work, and I still have to pay bills, and I still have to, you know, take care of my family. And so for me, the translation is that's, like you said, so many times we're on autopilot that we forget about the magic of the mundane.
Exactly.
And so that fully, you know, living that full experience is not just skydiving, is not just swimming with the dolphins. Living that full experience is all of the interactions that you have with your family, with your coworkers, with the process of paying taxes, because you can gain so much from all of those things.
You can. I mean, there is no difference other than the variables in gazing at a blade of grass for a long time and communing with it, or viewing the Grand Canyon, or viewing the Earth from the moon. You know, it's just that we put hierarchies on things. Again, that's programmed into us by, you know, the culture. But at the end of the day, it's all us. And when you finally feel that, it's so beautiful, because we don't feel so helpless and we don't feel alone.
Right.
I love the fact that we are at the point in this simulation, if you will, where we're actually waking up to the fact that we are here to experience. We are here to feel, and not just the ooey gooey good stuff, you know?
Right.
And so part of the practice, I believe, is in being present with all of it as much as you can, and being, and this is the hard thing for some people to get, and they resist it a lot, but being absolutely grateful for each thing that happens, because everything that is happening is your teacher.
And it's every single thing, like I said before, is an opportunity to learn something about yourself, and to learn potentially how to change something about yourself.
Don't you think that's where a lot of the resistance comes from? It's because, number one, people are convinced that they're just too tired, too overworked, too overtasked already to deal with something so monumental. But also there's this deep fear that I think also has been indoctrinated in our culture, that you don't want to know what's down in there. You're better off not knowing what's underneath the scab, right?
Right.
And the further could be the truth. The magic is when you go deep in there and you're just present with it. And you are. When you can get quiet enough, when you can get present enough, you are aware of these other realities. And they're not foreign to you at all. It starts unlocking all the gates.
Well, and I think that that's also true when you start thinking about the kind of paranormal or high strangeness aspects of life, right? Things like UFOs and ghosts and Bigfoot and things like that. That a lot of these things are likely just existing in another
layer of being,
layer of existence, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're able to tune yourself to those higher frequencies, all of a sudden
you perceive
now
them.
You can see them, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's almost like it takes them showing themselves once to you,
yes,
for you to think about the possibility of anything beyond what you've accepted as the truth. Now all of a sudden you're on your way towards that higher frequency.
Yeah, it's kind of like an inoculation, isn't it? You know, let's say that you have what they used to call bad blood, and you need a transfusion because you're weak and sick, and things aren't going well, and you get a little bit of a transfusion. That inoculation of that fresh blood comes in, and you're like, oh, I was looking at the world from, you know, some really muddy glasses. Now everything's kind of opening up. But we know this. I mean, even our own rudimentary science of quantum physics tells us everything exists in the same place at the same time forever. And so we are able to, when we do or allow ourselves to be, maybe we don't understand it, but we're okay maybe with that idea, or we want to experiment with that idea, when you can just sit still and be present, or be in any kind of flow state. You don't have to be sitting still. Suddenly, your periscope opens up, and you get, you know, perception of everybody else who's here, you know, because they're always here.
Well, and it's really interesting too when you think, you know, something I was talking to my kids about the other day was, you know, noticing that because one of my kids asked if, you know, we use enough words around dogs, if they would be able to really understand words the way we think about words. And so, you know, I asked them, well, what is a word in its root form. And they said, well, it's just noises. And I said, exactly. We made a bunch of noises, and then we all agreed as a society that this set of noises meant this thing. And so when you realize that speaking is probably one of the lowest forms of communication, and that dogs and other animals see us differently. They see our energetic bodies more so than our physical bodies and the words that we speak, which is why if you say, my dog's name is Luna, if I say, Luna, go outside, in a happy way, I'm projecting that happy, loving energy, right? And they're more apt to want to go with me to do whatever I'm trying to do. But if I say it in a negative way, or even just a dull kind of monotone, Luna, go outside, there's not a response.
No response.
The energy that I'm projecting is not that of excitement and happy and love. And so the same is true when people walk into a room, right? Someone walks into a room, you can see if they're in a good mood or a bad mood.
Absolutely.
And so moving beyond the idea that the only way we can communicate with each other as people is through words, when we all speak so many different languages and the languages of the world, but really we could speak to each other and show each other and extend that love field, if you will, with everybody that we meet. How much better that we will be as a society, as a population, and we can actually make these experiences much more profound, even the ones that cause us to question why we made a choice we made, will be much more profound in our understanding and help us grow as individuals.
I absolutely agree with you. And this is really, I think, what our next phase is for, you do this in your work, I do it in my work, and we know so many others who do teach this, being grateful and present and curious about everything. If you can consider everything sacred, everything that you do a sacred act, including doing your taxes or washing the dishes or whatever, and you do it from that energetic place, so much more information comes to you through that activity. How many times have you, for instance, been doing your dishes or vacuuming or, name money, commuting in traffic, and suddenly you just have this moment of, you're in traffic. What a beautiful sunset that is. Oh my God, I would have never seen it had I not been here. I'm so grateful. And then suddenly all kinds of ideas come to you while you're commuting.
Right.
And you don't feel angry or pent up or slowed down. It's the energy. And I know this is where we are moving towards, or maybe returning back to the type of beings that we really are.
And talking about having those ideas and those flow moments while you're doing activities, I think is another highlight of where you're engaging the left brain, if we'll make it scientific, right? Where you're engaging the left brain in its analytical, logical, that's what it's there for, right? The left brain is there to solve problems. So you engage it by saying drive to work, right? And then that frees up your right brain to the creative side of you to then do and think about and explore wondrous activities.
Absolutely.
So if you've ever had, I hear a lot from people, and I've had this problem in the past as well, say, I can't meditate because every time I close my eyes, I start thinking about all the things I have to do. Try to meditate while doing something. Engage your left brain in doing some logical activity, and then your right brain will be free to explore the freedoms and distances of the galaxy.
We talk about computer simulation when we started this topic. And so think about, most people's, even their simple computer, their laptop, has a dual drive, right? And so while one is, searching for whatever you're looking for on, Google search, over here, while it's pulling up this information, you're writing some little treatise on a theory that you're going to insert that into. In my work, I call it training the puppy. You know, in ancient times, it's been known since ancient times. If you give yourself something mundane or repetitious or boring to do, and you're consistent with it, the left brain's going to take hold of that and continue to do it, and you free up all of that space to access the quantum field, to stream the cloud, basically. And so that's why we do things like counting your breath, or, you know, whatever, chanting the same sound over and over again, or counting sheep. Metronome, theta metronome, absolutely. So it's really not that hard. The thing that's hard is getting yourself to consistently do it. Even 1 or 3 minutes a day, if you do something consistently for quite some time, then it becomes kind of an automatic thing, and you free up more space for that right brain.
And I am very much about one of the things that because I have ADHD, and so I struggle to, you know, it's very difficult for me to set set an item that I'm going to do and consistently follow up on doing it. So one of the things that I thought about and I created for myself is a macro. So for example, if I need to shield, right? I know the steps that I'm doing to shield, but I just close my eyes and say flame on, and I kind of think of myself as, you know, Johnny Storm from Fantastic Four, and all of a sudden now I'm shielded and I'm ready to go.
You give yourself a kind of a mnemonic, if you will. Right.
Exactly. And so there's nothing that, you know, anything, I'll just say it this way, anything that you can do in your mundane life to make life easier is also applicable to your spiritual life.
It is. It's sometimes the most sacred things. Think about, you know, monks. You know, they say, you know, the young monk goes to his master and says, how can I become enlightened? He says, chop wood, carry water. Chop wood, carry water. Chop wood, carry water. You know, that's mundane, it's repetitious, it's consistent, but yet it serves you and your population, that your community. It's very sacred. And while you're chopping wood and carrying water, suddenly that stream of consciousness starts to kick in, and you get all of these great inspirations, and you find you're in your nirvana. That's the premise.
And I think to kind of wrap that around, just to say that the final step is whatever those ideas and inspirations are that come to you, write them down. Keep a journal. Yes. Keep a digital journal. Make audio recordings.
Vocal,
after meditation. Whatever you need to do to record that history. Because, you know, we all have a lot of things going on, and we're probably not going to remember at all. And so it's definitely something you want to go back to and kind of ruminate, whatever, on at a later point in time, and see if whatever this is that you came back with is, you know, worth executing in your own life.
Absolutely. I mean, I've journaled since I was 13, and sometimes I will find a whole set from several years that I forgot about. I'll be like reading it. Some of it's, you know, hilarious because I was a 13-year-old or 15-year-old, but some of it is so profound. I'm like, how did that come in? Oh yeah, that's when I first started practicing, you know. But for some people who can't sit down and write, or they're you know, they don't want to be on their computer any more than they already are.
Right.
Just having almost everyone listening to this probably has a phone, and on those phones usually there's a simple voice recorder.
Yep.
Just record your thoughts when you get them, and keep them in a safe place, and then go back every so often. Maybe make a date with yourself once a month to go back and look at those things. And what I do is I then, on my program, I hit transcribe. It's kind of hilarious how it transcribes it. It's not, you know, sometimes it doesn't get it, but you get the gist of the ideas, and pretty soon you're like, oh gosh, I've got an article, or I've got a book, or I have a new class, you know, that I can teach, or a new process that I can practice for myself. This is amazing. So we all have it within us. We place too many labels on things. and we separate ourselves from it. It's too mundane. I don't want to do that. Don't want to wax the floor. Yeah.
And I think that sometimes we also, when we think about manifesting what we want in life, we think that we put too much restrictions on what that manifestation is going to be, right? I'm manifesting wealth in my life. Therefore, I'm going to win the lottery. Yeah. Well, maybe you're manifesting wealth, and your greater self gave you an idea that's worth a multi-million-dollar company, and you're not running with it, right? So there's just never be restrictive in how you're manifesting success.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just finished teaching my annual Feng Shui Vision Board class, and I tell people it's okay to have pictures of the things that you want or want to accomplish, but try to keep things way unlimited as far as your scope. Abundance isn't just wealth, right? Abundance means you're having everything you need when you need it. So it's just that idea. And I thank you for bringing that up, because we as humans, again, have been brought up to speak in limiting terms and put fences around our dreams. And we shouldn't. We're unlimited beings. Infinitely capable.
Very much so. Well, that brings us to the end of our third episode. It was a great one. Awesome. Thank you so much, Debz. If you want to work with Debz, you can go to her website, which is debzshakti.com, and she has her services on there. And if you would like to work with me, I would love it. And you can go to mymysticmentor.com and sign up for a free consultation, and we'll have a conversation and see if it's something that works for both of us. So thank you again for tuning in. Please subscribe, like, share with anybody. And we'd like to know if you have any comments, things that you'd like to see us talk about. Or if something we said really resonated with you, we'd like to know that feedback as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Josh. I love our visits together. Yes. It just sets me off on all kinds of new paths. So.
And right, we're recording this right before the weekend, so now it really makes us exciting for the weekend. What are we going to come up with? So
Friday, yay! So thank you,
my brother.
Everyone.
I
love it. Bye, everybody.